Happy New Year. Thanks for spending your first day back with us, learning all things Middle States or the Commission, as we've learned. So as you heard, our co-chairs are Jaime, Mike, and myself. So you'll be hearing and seeing a lot of us over the next few years as we go through this process. And so we wanted to, if you're not at a chair with a packet, make sure you get a packet. There's a paper and a little gift. Make sure you get one of those at some point before you leave today. We'll be reviewing the paper that's on that chair. The slide's a little small. We also want to thank Cynthia, Mike's wife, for providing the yummy cake that's in the back today. So please, that's exactly it. Please help yourself to coffee and cake while you're here today. So I want to go over the significance of those seed packets that are on the chairs. You'll see in each slide there's a version of a sunflower growing on most of our slides. And we came up with this idea because the seed packets, they symbolize the potential for growth and development at the college. It's important when you have seeds to nurture them and use collaboration to help them flourish. And that's much like our self-study process that we'll go through between now and 2026. We encourage our participants to share their unique skills and perspectives as the nutrients to the seeds. And that fosters a sense of teamwork and collective process. And we're going to review a lot of how that's going to happen today and then throughout the next few years when you meet with us. So today's agenda, I just wanted to briefly review, is starting now. We'll go until around 11 with Jaime, Mike, and I giving our presentation. And then you're going to break out into your workout groups. So there's going to be a working group chair and a co-chair. Surprise, if you didn't know you were a co-chair, you do now. And you'll be breaking off. You can go anywhere on campus with your group, and you'll be meeting for about an hour. And we'll give you an agenda and some tasks to come back with when you're done with that. And then we'll have a pizza party back here when we're done. So we're going to play a little game. If you have your phones with you, you can take out your phones. And there's two ways to join this game. You can go to menti.com and type in the code that's available here, or you can try scanning the QR code. It was giving us a little bit of trouble, but give it a shot, and I'll give you a minute or so to do that, and then we'll go to the question.
The QR was working? Good.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, I know. Got a couple more we'll wait for. Everybody good? Okay. Oops. So you can see all your words are popping up. So what you're feeling about, what is the word you think of with the self-study process? Be nice. Yes. I can't hear you. The code is 41441581.
No, go to
That's not true. It's 2667-0950. It's right at the top of the screen there. It's a little small.
Say it one more time.
2667-0950. Do I have bingo? Okay. I like the reflection as the biggest word here. Evaluation, long. Yes, it is long. Research, happy. I like happy. Thanks to whoever did that. Honesty. Mm-hmm.
Introspective. That's a great word, introspective. I like those big words.
Intriguing. I agree that it's intriguing. Oh, we got more votes for long. Teamwork.
Truth. That's great. Veritas.
Intense. Yes.
Innovative. There's one on the side.
Innovative.
Those are very positive.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for participating. We just wanted to get an idea of what everyone was feeling now. We might see how you're feeling later, too. We're going to do one more. Okay. Have you been part of an accreditation process in the past? Your options are yes, no, or kind of, just in case you're not totally positive.
And I guess it's not limited to institutional, but also programmatic, if you, so it could be any kind of accreditation process. Be clear about that.
Sorry, I can't read it up there. Wow. It's a good thing we're doing this.
So we have more no's than, I thought it'd be more closer to 50-50. But it's good for us to know where we need to give more education in the process, if there are a significant amount of no's.
Well, more no's.
Okay, good, thank you. Thanks for participating. We'll come back to that later, so leave the app open. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jaime.
So with as many no's as we had, we know we're on the right track having this kickoff today. But the first thing we want to do is kind of reiterate some things that Dr. Perry said, as well as introduce MSCHE to you. So who is the Middle States Commission of Higher Education? First, it's important to note that Middle States accreditation is an expression of confidence in an institution's mission and goals, its performance, and its resources. Accreditation occurs when an educational community has verified that its goals are achieved through self-regulation and peer review. You can see from this slide, we are sharing the Commission's mission, vision, and values, highlighting some key points to become more familiar with the Commission and guide us as we gather in our working groups today and for the duration of the self-study process. I highlighted some of these words, such as forward-thinking nature. The mission promotes educational excellence. The vision, a prominent voice and champion in higher education. Values, protect educational quality. Guiding for the good, fuel discovery and progress for our community. And the last part, which I found was really important, we promote quality through honest reflection, institutional growth, and meaningful change. These values guide our external and internal relationships where integrity, respect, and self-improvement promote professional and collective growth, creativity, collaboration, accountability, and fair and equitable treatment. And I think we did see some of those words in our mentee, so we're right on track. This is Dr. Judith Sipple. She is our self-study liaison during this process. She is here to provide advice, assist with accreditation activities, and support our institution while we complete our self-study review. Dr. Sipple is not a stranger to Mike, Allie, and I, and some of you that were in the Self-Study Institute. During our time participating in the Self-Study Institute last fall, we also met with Dr. Sipple in a small group cohort over a period of 5 weeks, getting prepared for today and this journey. On January 19th, we will be meeting with Dr. Sipple virtually to go over where we are in the self-study process. We'll be sharing about today, and also talk about her spring prep visit to campus. So it's important to know that I'm thinking April, we don't have a date yet, but she will be on campus visiting us and seeing where we are and getting ready for our self-study design, which is this first step in the spring. Okay.
All right. We're doing this round robin here. I'm going to recapitulate basically what Dr. Perry already summarized in his introduction. And Dr. Perry quite sagely asked me early on to contact Dr. Sipple about our accreditation history, just to give us a sense of kind of the longitudinal timeline. So I went to the source here. Dr. Sipple got back to me and drew my attention to this particular slide. So you can take a look at the history. As I understand, we were first accredited by the Commission in 1967. The first self-study that we did was 1987. I was not here for that. John, where's JD? JD and I were just reminiscing about all the self-studies we've been through. So this is my fourth. Middle States was running on what's called a decennial cycle prior to this particular cycle, which means every 10 years in plain English. I think it was 2018 Middle States or 2016 Middle States decided to go to an octennial cycle, meaning 8 years. So we're right now in an octennial cycle. We're moving towards the culmination or the denouement of this cycle before we move forward. So think cyclical. We're our mathematicians. We're in the arc on a circle. We're not coming on a line. It's not linear. This is not a linear process at all. Does that make sense? Am I speaking correctly there? We're in the arc on a cycle. So, and I've been here this is my fourth, and I'm looking forward. I think we have an incredible community here, and we're going to move forward. If I can quote Dr. Perry, at the very beginning of this particular arc of the cycle, Dr. Perry urged and suggested that we move through this with a spirit of both transparency and advocacy. And I love that. I want to quote that over and over. Keep in your mind kind of the overarching ethos of this self-study is transparency and advocacy as we move forward. That's all really this is our accreditation history, where we are now as a function of this past. So
get a little bit into the meat of the self-study. So the purpose and the goals of what'll be coming. So the goal is to strengthen and integrate Manor College to be even more effective at doing what we already do very well, which is our institutional mission, our current institutional priorities, and the intended outcomes of the study. And so we're doing this to drive continuous improvement, to follow the guiding principles set forth by the commission, and driving forward the Manor College strategic plan, which will start again, as Dr. Perry said, in 2026. So everything that we do in this next cycle is going to inform our next strategic plan. Through generative strategic feed forward and feedback, little gardening terms, for calibrated institutional operation. So it gives you a little overview of why we're doing this, what our end result goals are. It seems a little bit more pared down with 3 goals, and it makes it a little bit more easier to digest.
Yeah, it's really interesting and it's really important for us to underscore the importance of our institutional priorities as we move forward through this accreditation self-study process. And these are the priorities that Dr. Perry referenced our current strategic plan, Caring with Purpose. These are priorities directly taken from or derived from that particular institutional strategic plan. So we identified, as recommended by the commission in our Self-Study Institute, we identified 3 primary institutional priorities that will kind of direct us as we move forward. And we'll make sure that everything we do is kind of aligned with these priorities. And again, these priorities aren't something that we just pulled from outside. These are priorities that we pulled from our own institutional strategic planning documents. And they also are reflective of the mission statement, which always kinds of governs everything as we move forward. So just kind of get into your mind and just for kind of as we get enculturated into this self-study worldview, so to speak, at Manor College, start to familiarize yourself with these 3 institutional priorities. And again, they really are reflective of the "You Belong Here" tagline. They'll kind of dovetail into that tagline. And I like that 3rd one. I'm a gardener, so I just love the idea of growing anything. So we're really cultivating, nurturing, and growing here. All right. Moving on here. We have to identify our intended outcome as part of our self-study design. The first thing we're going to be generating in this spring 2024 cycle is the SSD, or the self-study design. We have to identify our own, in a way, learning outcomes or learning goals. The first 3 of these goals are those mandated or prescribed by MSCHE, or the commission itself. And the other goals are goals that we have identified historically in prior self-study documents and self-studies. So again, as we begin to become enculturated into this self-study ethos or self-study worldview, begin to familiarize yourself with these goals, because these goals we will have to, in a way, we're going to have to close the proverbial loop by demonstrating that we've actually achieved these goals that we've set for ourselves as a function of this self-study. So again, the first one is demonstrate how Manor College currently meets the commission's standards for accreditation and requirements of affiliation, focus on continuous improvement. And I think one of the big takeaways from our own enculturation into this process was that what we're creating here is not a culture of compliance. We're creating a culture of improvement. And I think we already have that culture. It's not something foreign to us. We're very familiar with that. Engage the Manor community in an inclusive and transparent self-appraisal process that actively and deliberately seeks to involve members from all areas of the institutional community. And in a bit, we'll talk about the guiding principles that MSCHE has set up. One of the most important there is DEI or DEIA, and we see the word inclusivity in there, and we see the words transparency in there, which we mentioned before. Use the self-study to inform and guide implementation of the college's strategic plan to provide contemporary and innovative learning experiences sensitive to the needs of students in the community. Demonstrate that Manor College's planning processes are sufficiently clear, coherent, practical, and sustainable. A couple of big words that came up in our enculturation or training were the words alignment and coming up with or being conscious or being mindful of naming conventions, consistency through our strategic planning and our reflection or representation of our institutional operation as a product of that strategic self-study. Also, use the self-study process to evaluate institutional assessment practices and identify challenges and opportunities for continued institutional change and improvement. I like the word opportunity. We always talk about coming from a strength development perspective as opposed to a deficit mindset. Do you ever hear that distinction? Yeah, so we're definitely coming into this, and we definitely embody institutionally a strength development or talent development. I don't like the word mindset, but outlook in contrast to a deficit mindset. All right, thank you. So I'll pass it on to Jaime.
So one of the words in the MSCHE was long. Long but short, really. 2 years is long, but I think this process has been already flying by and will continue to do so. So in November, we already did the Self-Study Institute, and the good news of all of this, when we look at the timetable, and I said this to the chairs already, we're ahead of the game. So that makes me feel good, being part of this or being a leader of this. So we already have our steering committee completed, and we have met with them already. We already have our scheduled remote meeting in January, on January 19th with Dr. Sipple. And we are, as of today, beginning the draft of our self-study design. It says from February to April, assemble the working groups. All of you had that paper on your chair, so you can see we already have that done. But the next big thing for us is to do the draft of our self-study design, and it says by April 1st, and we want to have it in and already reviewed. So March is really, the beginning of March is really the time we want to have this done. So from today to the beginning of March, and believe it or not, we already have, I would say, about half of it done because we have our intended outcomes, we have our priorities, and today we're going to work on our lines of inquiry, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So again, we're ahead of the game. We will let everybody know once we know Dr. Sipple is coming to campus. And looking at previous self-studies, it was around April. You can see after the design goes in, pretty much from, I would say, June to September, it says that they'll be looking at our self-study design, asking us for revisions, and then after that, we're going to kind of go into the list of data that we're giving to show that we meet the standards or we're working with the standards, and we're going to then create our whole self-study. Ending with the visit in 2026. So we're looking at spring of 2026 for our visit from our whole entire report that we will do. So 2024 self-study design, 2024, 2025, we will do the actual self-study, and then we will submit it and then in 2026, it will be the visit. No? Oh, no.
That's okay. So this is the slide that's on the chairs, because it's a little hard to see up here. And we just wanted to, I'm going to go a little through this a little quickly because our timing. But as you can see, we just have an organizational structure for the whole Middle States process, starting with Dr. Perry. Then you see our co-chairs, our steering committee. Each member of the steering committee is a working group chair. You'll also see listed our vice chairs. Congratulations, you're a vice chair. So a vice chair's role, you'll find out, is if the chair has to step aside for any reason, personal reasons, job, life, you'll step in as chair and take over those roles. Then you'll see our working groups. The space under recorder is currently blank. That's going to be one of your tasks in your breakout group, is to assign a recorder. And then each of you is assigned to a working group. We did our best to give you the first or second choice that you selected in the survey. If you didn't select, we selected for you. So hopefully it works out for you. We are looking for subject matter experts in each area, so we did try to align you with your area of expertise to try and help that process.
Yeah, in the matter of time, or in the service of time, we'll move forward. And I'm very hard at being succinct or brief, you know that. So just want to draw your attention to the Manor College mission statement that's promulgated on our website and other places as well. Just keep this in mind. This is our overarching strategic document, which really defines our identity as an institution and our mission. So try to familiarize yourself with the verbiage of this particular statement as we go forward as part of that enculturation process or acculturation process.
And the 7 standards. I'm just going to list them, but the commission established 7 standards. You will see when you get into your working groups that your designated standard is described in 1 or 2 sentences. You'll have handouts in your working group so you have a good guide on what you're doing when you break out. So you have your standard, you have 1 or 2 sentences describing your standard, and then you have the criteria for that standard. So your goal is to demonstrate or determine compliance within the context of our institutional mission. So we have Standard 1, Mission and Goals. Standard 2, Ethics and Integrity. Standard 3, Design and Delivery of the Student Learning Experience. Standard 4, Support of the Student Experience. Standard 5, Educational Effectiveness Assessment. Standard 6, Planning, Resources, and Institutional Improvement. And Standard 7, Governance, Leadership, and Administration.
So you might be wondering, why am I important? You are the working groups, as you saw in the organizational chart. So without your good work, we can't help, and your good feedback, we can't inform our institutional self-study. So you will directly fuel the final self-study in 2026 throughout the time between now and then. You also represent, as we said earlier, a very broad range of perspectives, and we want to hear them all. And you are the subject matter experts on campus, so we want to know what's going on in your areas, good, bad, and everything in between.
So how does this all work? Our goal when we meet together is to develop a clear, logical mapping of concepts connecting the standards, the priorities, the outcomes, lines of inquiry, and data. The standards are already there for us. The priorities are already established. The outcomes are already established. So now when you meet today, you're going to start with your lines of inquiry. And then you're going to see what data we're going to have to meet these standards. So what we decided, they give 2 options with Middle States. Do you want to do a standards-based approach or a priorities-based approach? I'm saying that right, I hope. So we decided to do a standards-based approach, which means every working group is 1 standard. We already aligned the standards that Middle States set forth with our institutional priorities that we shared with you previously. And all of our priorities will relate to the growing spirit and the You Belong Here culture. So expanding student support, establishing a cyclical process to evaluate, refine, and implement policies to support mission-driven goals, and to grow the campus population.
So I'm going to be speaking from experience on this. I've been a working group chair, a working group co-chair, and also a working group member over the 3 self-study cycles that I've been through. So one of the great mysteries is, well, what do we do as a working group? And this is relevant to both the leadership of each group and also the constituency of each group. So one of the primary functions of the group is to work from those 7 standards. Middle States calls them the standards of accreditation. And in fact, they just came out with a new edition of these standards in in July 1st of this year. And interestingly enough, looking back longitudinally, the Middle States keeps underscoring how different the standards of accreditation are now. But when I look at them, they're not, I think the spirit of the standards that have gone before are still retained in the new standards. They're not that profoundly different. So I'm just saying that to put you at ease a little bit. It's like, well, those of you who've been through this, who have some experience, it's not that radically different. Lines of inquiry, each group will be working on today is working with the verbiage of the standard it has been given to translate that verbiage into questions, really. And those questions will drive your research as a group, your collection of data, as well as your writing of your particular self-study report for that particular standard. I hope that makes sense. Now, the lines of inquiry aren't simply recapitulating the criteria that are associated with each standard. Really, it's working with the language of the standard itself to turn that language into questions that will then really define and drive your research as a group. And the big thing to remember with Middle States, with the commission, is that it's very important that this be a quantitative kind of self-study, meaning that everything that we do is data-driven. And Middle States, in fact, came out with a document called the MSCHE evidence, always expectations by standard. That's the correct title? Yeah, so that's going to help us to understand what kind of evidence that we should be pulling to base our self-study or our reports on. So one of the things that, in conjunction with this, we have to make sure that we develop a clear, logical mapping of concepts to support the self-study process. We'll talk more in the future. We'll get into more of those naming conventions. We're looking, again, for consistency in the way that we represent ourselves in this self-study. And this is this is one of these bottom lines here. Each working group must submit their lines of inquiry no later than January 31st, 2024. We have a real clear timeline with that. So those are just the lines of inquiry. And we have some samples. I'll share with you some samples of what that means. One of the things I wanted to keep you mindful of is that you're working as a group, and you want to try to deploy each person's talents and each person's niche, so to speak, in the group. So keep that in mind as you work forward in generating these lines of inquiry.
Okay, so we're going to talk about what's happening today. When you get in your groups, when we break out in a few minutes, you need to select an area in the library. There's 7 groups, varying sizes. And then Jaime, Mike, and I will come over to you and we'll give you packets that will have a lot of this information. So you're going to review your standard, which will be in your packet, and the evidence examples that you'll need to provide for that standard. And so we're also including links here because the presentation is now on the calendar invite. So if you want to have a hard copy of the presentation, you can go back and print that out and click the links. You will need to establish a recorder, like we said earlier. So it's kind of like a secretary that's going to take notes at your meetings and submit the notes to us, the minutes to us, so we can keep them in our working documents. And let us know by the end of your meeting today who that recorder will be. And then this is as you saw earlier, the Middle States 2026@manor.edu is our official email that we'll be sending and receiving items from for this purpose. You'll review your working group charge key elements handout, which we'll also provide to you. And you should start talking about a meeting schedule for your work group, since we do need to have your lines of inquiry submitted to us by January 31st. You are going to want to establish a few meetings before that date. So anything with a star on the end is your today's agenda items. The last couple points there are things that you need to do moving forward. So you should take a look at your past self-study design and report. Again, the links are available there and they'll be on the calendar. And then again, develop the lines of inquiry, which we will need no later than January 31st. I think we said it a few times, right? We're good. So we're gonna do one more poll before we hear from Dr. Perry one more time and leave. So get your phones out again. Okay, you just shouldn't have to scan anything again. So after hearing from all of us and all of these Middle States words and the process, what do you think of now when you think of Middle States and the accreditation process? Yeah. Oh, I like that it's a little clearer, thanks.
Clear but confused, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, a bit confused.
Our goal was to have none.
Yeah.
I think once we get past the more abstract explanation and get into it, I think things will become clearer.
Mm-hmm.
Bureaucratic. I love the bureaucratic.
Good, this is great information.
I gotta say, as bureaucratic as it sounds, Middlescape's is underscoring that this is also, their qualitative response is as important as quantitative. So they use the metaphor of, we need to tell our story. So we can't forget that we're telling our story through quantitative evidence, just kind of make it a little bit more humane and humanistic,
So, and please know that Jaime, Mike, and I are here to help you through the process. And there's been many people on campus, not as many as I thought, but that have gone through the accreditation process, that understand the ins and outs. I'm still learning. I think all of us are still learning as we go. Mike is probably the consummate professional, seasoned professional here.
Where's JD? He has a lot under his belt.
Yeah, JD has. So confused, I think, is very appropriate, as is Scrabble. Thank you for whoever typed Scrabble. Yeah, well, because I've Scrabbled. So are there any questions that the three of us can answer now as a group?
We'll walk around when they're in their working.
Yeah, we will walk around and give I think I said it. We'll give your handouts out in your group.
Yeah, I just had a quick question to make it easier in how I'm processing it, make it easier for us to identify. Because you gave that chart, that pyramid chart, but knowing who will be the lead people, like if we do
Oh, great idea, yeah.
Hand up, something like that, and say, hey,
Yeah.
Good idea.
you're this person, this person, this person.
After Dr. Perry speaks very briefly, we'll call up the working group chairs and we'll say, standard one, you can get with your group. Thank you very much. That's a very admissionsy way to think too.
Any other questions? Confused was a word that took a prominent spot. Any other questions?